Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr. This is the On the Stacks podcast.
Oh yeah, whoa, look, they can never keep me down, I'm going, and if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up.
There's always going to be somebody to house. You're almost just like putting a little band-aid on it and you just move on to the next person. And that is so wonderful on an individual level to get somebody into housing. Like I said, I felt so much joy doing that and like literally changing somebody's life. But there needs to be bigger like systemic changes. And I just thought like I could be the person to do that.
Today, I'm chatting with Maegan Zielinski, advocate for ending homelessness and social media content creator for nonprofits and small businesses. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. This episode is brought to you by Blue Door Financial. Blue Door Financial will help you save money and reduce taxes to live a fuller financial life. To learn more, visit Blue Door Financial online at BLUdoorfinancial.com. That's BLUdoorfinancial.com. What's up, podcast episode 112 of the On the Stacks podcast here in the Blue Door studio. Welcome to the show, Maegan. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. This is fun. I'm glad we connected on this, and it's been, your home. Well, this isn't really home for you, but I call it home because you have a lot of connections.
I do.
And ties here, grassroots to the area. But yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But I caught you at a good time right before you're heading back to your home.
Yeah.
Which is where?
In Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Which is about 9 hours away if people are not familiar with the geography of the United States.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. I need some schooling on that myself because I'm really bad on that. You weren't born and raised here in NEPA, but you frequently visit because you do have family here.
Yes.
and some business stuff that we'll get into.
Yeah.
But where does the Maegan story begin?
It begins in Maryland in a small town called Bel Air. Fresh queen or fresh princess of Bel Air, I guess, in Maryland. So yeah, I was born and raised there. I have family in Maryland. I have family here in Pennsylvania as well. But my mom was actually born and raised here, and she left the area when she was about 18, I think. And that her and my dad was from Jersey, so they came together in Maryland, had me and my sister. And I visited the area because I obviously have family here. So my cousin Lauren, famous celebrity here in the Napa Valley.
I was wondering how long it was going to take before her name came. We're like a minute and a half in.
Either comes at the beginning or the end of the episodes, right?
Yeah,
so I figured I'll do it now.
Definitely,
drop now.
For sure.
And so yeah, I visited the area, and I've lived a few different places. So I went from born and raised in Maryland, went to college, UMD, go Terps. That's about the extent of my sports knowledge, by the way. So that's all you'll get out of me.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then I moved to Austin in 2014. Austin, Texas. I was there from 2014 to 2018. And then I moved to North Carolina in 2018 until now. And then hopefully by the end of this year, I'll be a full-time resident in this great NEPA community.
Whoa. A full-time resident?
Yeah, full-time.
For real.
For real.
Wow. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So
hopefully my last move. it's expensive to move.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, you've been in a few different places.
Yeah.
So all right, so you've been mostly like a Southern person really your whole life.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. You're a Southerner
I am.
about to become a Northerner.
Yeah, I'm not ready for this cold.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. I am not. It's 80 degrees right now in Wilmington.
Yeah,
North
it's like
Carolina,
65.
so-
It's like 65 here. It's not bad, right?
Yeah, but it also snowed the other day, which was
It did.
alarming.
Alarming, yes.
In April?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. But we're getting there. We're close.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me after college, like what did you do after? What did you go to school for, and like what did you end up doing right out of school?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So I did my undergrad at University of Maryland. I got my bachelor's in social psychology, and right out of college, I started working at a tax accounting firm, which, by the way, 70% of graduates don't get a job in their field right after college. So at that time, I don't know what the statistic is now, but so I felt that validated some things for me. But I really wanted to be a counselor, and I really wanted to be a therapist. I like working with people, and I really value like mental health and, self-care, all of those things. So I really felt like I could like do some good in that field. I worked at the tax accounting firm for like a year, and I realized this was not it. And I really wanted to go to grad school because I was really wanting to pursue like a real licensure or like some sort of counseling licensure. And so I started applying to grad schools, and I applied to University of Austin, Texas. So, and did not get in. I guess spoiler alert. But I thought, but I want to move there anyway. Why do I need to go to grad school in order to move to a new area? I should just move there because I like it there and I want to be there, and there's a lot of good opportunities there. So I moved, and I didn't have anybody out there, but I was like in my 20s, early 20s. And I was like, this is great. I'm a very independent person. I am a Sagittarius, for those wondering. So I do like to move and move around.
Is that what the Sagittarius people do?
It is.
Did I pronounce that right?
Sagittarius.
Sagittarius.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They like to move.
They do. And they're very independent and just sort of like free thinkers and just kind of go with it.
All right.
So yeah, I moved there, and I had a few different jobs in Austin. I primarily was in like the mental health field. So when I first got there, I worked for a boys and girls club, which really wasn't like my thing. It was the first job that I was offered, and I needed a job, so I was like, okay, I'll do this. But it really wasn't a good fit. But from there, I was actually able to get a job working with kids between 5 and 17 who had a mental health diagnosis. So I became their case manager. So I worked with them depending on their age, right? It depends on what you work on them with, coping skills or like learning to manage mental health. Sometimes they are on medication, so medication management, anything that's going on like in family, their family lives or school. So I would actually go to their school and visit them for 30 minutes or an hour, again, depending on the kid, talk with them, talk about their goals. And I really liked working with the teens because I was young too. I mean, I was only like 24. So they kind of thought of me as like their older sister.
Yeah, like you could relate.
Yeah.
You're close enough in age.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I got confused for a student at the schools.
Yeah,
I was
I bet,
walking
yeah.
around like, where's your hall pass? I'm like, I am 24.
I work here.
Yeah. So that was really good. I really liked that. I really liked connecting with the adolescents, and I feel like they gave me more information than they would like, typical, like a much older case manager. Cause again, they kind of felt like it was more of like a older mentor or like maybe a sibling or a distant relative. I went to one of the kids' high school graduations. That was a really nice moment for me to just, I know it felt really good that like someone wanted me to be at their high school graduation, like getting them through like some tough times. So I really liked that, but it was a really far commute for me. I was living in Austin, and it was technically in Bastrop, and it was like about 30 or 40 minutes. So I just really wanted something more local. And I ended up getting a job at the psychiatric hospital. I have a lot of good stories about that.
That was interesting. So on, but before we get into that, I just want to just kind of back up just like a little bit. Also, because it's actually it's May right now, but I think this episode may come out like just the beginning of June. But it is Mental Health Awareness Month, right? So this is kind of good timing, and I feel like this was meant to be. But I just want to like ask you, like, why is mental health why is it so important to you?
Oh my gosh, it affects every part of our lives. Like if you are struggling with anxiety or depression or maybe something, like OCD or like a personality disorder or something, like that is going to affect your life and the way that you manage and the way that you cope and the way that you hold boundaries with other people. And it's so important for you to be the best version like of yourself or that you can be, because it impacts your life, like if you are not feeling good or you're not feeling your best, you're not going to be your best, that affects, other opportunities or just your way of living. Like I know a lot of people struggle with just, basic cleaning. If they get in their depressive episode, then they can't clean their apartment or their house, and so then they're living in like sort of this like chaos, right? And if for me, that stresses me out. Like I like things to be like, in order. I like to have like a clean place, and not saying that those folks don't. That's usually not the case, actually. It's just that they're so focused on, what they're currently going through. Like that's the priority. And these other little things like eating healthy or cooking or seeing friends or like having a social life, like those things become put on the back burner. And then you yourself just can't thrive into your best self.
I get it. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Really important. Yeah. And I also, I know some other folks have come on to the show and talked about mental health. I go to therapy. I've been in therapy. I've struggled. Some people are in therapy for so many different reasons. I was in abusive relationships. That's why I went to therapy, so I could work through that, and obviously being in those situations like caused depression and anxiety, and like I needed help to get through that. And I don't think that's anything to like be ashamed about at all.
So you really experienced this like firsthand.
Yes. Yeah. I've been in therapy, I guess, in and out for like a couple of years. Cause sometimes you feel good. You don't feel like you need to be in it consistently. So you take a little break and then you just go on with like your life, and then something else happens and you're like, oh, maybe I should, revisit that. And then also other people are in therapy for long term and stay with it. I think everybody's story and what they're going through is like very different, and like not one thing is going to fit like that person. Like what works for me might not work for somebody else.
Yeah, everything's unique.
Exactly. Yeah. Like every body is different, your body, the way you think, your perception and your perspective on things is really different.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for sharing that. Cause I know it's like really personal, and I think it's important to, for people to talk about, because I think it's just such a hot topic nowadays, and I think it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of people struggle, like it's like a real thing.
Yeah. We definitely need to normalize it for sure. Like talking about these things, especially when, with abusive relationships, right? People sort of like, ooh, like their toes curdle. They're thinking, oh my gosh, were you beat up or something like that, right? And it's like, no, actually abuse comes in like many different forms, right? Like, of course there is physical, there's also mental and psychological, there's verbal, like there's a wide spectrum of what that can look like for everybody. And just in my own experience of like telling my story, like people are like, oh, like it's sort of like a shock value, right? Or like they get shocked from it, but it's like we need to normalize those things. So that way, when someone is going through that situation, they can hear somebody talk about it and be like, wait, like I'm going through that. Like it's not normal to be in like an unhealthy relationship. So now maybe I can go and do what's best for me, whether that's like therapy or leaving the relationship or whatever that looks like for somebody. It's like normalizing it and making it not feel like that person's so alone.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and just as little as you sharing your story today here on the show, I mean, somebody could be watching this and be like, you know what, that now gave me the courage to just go get some help. Just ask.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do. I hope so.
Well, good. Thanks again for sharing. So, all right, let's go back to you said the psychiatric ward.
Yes. So I worked overnights at a psychiatric hospital, So I worked like 10 p.m. to like 7 a.m. And I worked in the admissions part. So when folks needed to come in and be admitted, there was a whole, assessment we did and wand them down, make sure weapons, take away anything that they could maybe hurt themselves with. But I was the only one. So it was just me back in the office. And if someone were to come in, because typically overnights like weren't super crazy as they were like during the day. So they could get away with like, having maybe like one person or two people like on the overnight shift. And what the overnight person does is they will call people in. So you have nurses who are on call. You have a licensed counselor or a psychiatrist on call. And so if someone would come in, I would do all the prep work, get them situated, get their the data into the system, and I would call the nurse or I'd call whoever was on call to come in and do like the actual full assessment, because I wasn't licensed, so I legally obviously couldn't do it. And it was a way for them to, right, like cut some costs too, right? You're not going to pay a psychiatrist for a 10-hour shift. Like you're going to pay the technician. I was a mental health technician. So you're going to pay the tech to be there and sort of watch over things. I mean, sometimes I didn't get anybody. And other times 14 people came in one night. I'm like, oh my gosh, like all this stuff is like happening. And yeah, it was pretty wild. I would always like, so there's cameras, right? I'm in the admissions office. I'm sitting back. There's cameras everywhere where you can see. And sometimes I would just think, what if I saw a ghost right now? What's my game plan here? Like, am I leaving out the back? Am I calling the floor, the people who are out on the floor, like taking care of patients? Am I calling them and letting them know, like, what's happening? Like, so obviously nothing super creepy happened. I mean, some creepy things did happen, but I never saw anything on camera. It was just kind of...
You didn't see Casper?
I did not see Casper. So this was interesting. So before the hospital was built, this is what I've heard. Okay,
All right, so here we go. Urban legend.
Yeah, urban legend. I never fact checked it.
All right.
That there used to be like a child's hospital or like a child's what am I can't think of the word right now. I don't want to say babysitting. It's like a daycare center or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And apparently some like shady things went on and some children had died. And so when that got torn down, they built the psychiatric hospital. And so the urban legend or the myth is that like you can see children
like roaming the halls.
Yes, as ghosts, or that they will speak to the patients or something like that. So there was one situation where one of the patients was like in their room and they had a bathroom. So they had a roommate. So there was 2 rooms and then they shared a bathroom. So there was no reason for them to come out of their rooms. Everything they needed was in their rooms. And apparently when one of the floor staff was, checking in, so they do rounds, just like in a regular hospital. They do rounds every 15 minutes and check on the patients, make sure they're breathing, make sure everything's okay. And so when the round was occurring, the patient was like standing in the corner of the room and like not really, being, I guess, like involved with the person who was doing the round. And they were like, hey, talking to the patient, like, what's going on? The person is like not responsive and they're just like standing in the corner. Now, this is a psychiatric hospital, so there could be instances where this person could be hallucinating or having like an auditory something going on, right? But the patient had turned around and was like, this child is like talking to me, like I'm talking to this child. And the person who was doing the round was like so freaked out and was like, I gotta go. I gotta like finish this up. Like they were just like totally freaked out by it. So, I think some weird things might have happened.
Yeah. Wow.
There.
This is like Ghost Hunters. Isn't that a show or something?
It is a show.
Ghost Hunters. I didn't know that we were recreating Ghost Hunters today, but I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was I mean, aside from the ghosts, there were some like wild patients too. I mean, we had some patients come in and break down doors and strip down naked and
yikes.
Yikes on bikes.
Yikes. Yeah.
We had this thing in the psych hospital called booty juice, which is a combination of a psychiatric drug, usually like Geodon and like something else, right?
Booty juice.
Booty juice.
Is that like its street name, or is that like, is that real like medical term?
It's not. No, it's not the medical term.
Okay,
so I hope I don't get a lot of hate from the
Yeah.
psychiatric medical community on this.
And guys, we're not making fun, by the way.
No, of course
just
not.
to be clear here, we're just
It was
All right, so booty juice.
Yeah, it was for extreme cases, right? Where you had someone we had someone come in and literally bust through our deadbolt door and into our computer office, and he was a 300-pound man.
Yeah, that's scary.
So in that case, you need some booty juice.
Okay.
And we have to call a code. So, in regular hospitals, like a code green, code black, whatever the codes are, we had codes too. So we'd say Dr. Green to admissions, and that was you'd see all the nurses running in and like, who's got the booty juice?
Yeah.
And they would have to like sedate them and
calm down the situation.
Yeah,
that's scary.
It is. And we all had to be trained in restraints and stuff too. Like I had to, because you have to protect yourself if someone is having like a psychiatric, episode, whatever that could be, So we had clients in there who struggled with schizophrenia. These are like very real diagnoses, and, there's no way to to talk bad or discredit like someone's diagnosis, but when it's like left untreated, or if that person is going through a situation that has exacerbated their mental health, that's usually why they find themselves like in the psychiatric hospital, because they're really struggling and they're having this episode or this situation occur that's like setting off. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but in terms of like homelessness, experiencing homelessness can exacerbate your mental health if you have an underlying mental health diagnosis, whether that's anxiety or depression. 1 out of 3 or maybe 1 out of 5 people struggle with a mental health issue. So imagine you're in a situation where you are without all of your belongings, you're experiencing homelessness. That in itself is very dangerous. You're constantly in a fight or flight, mode. Of course that's gonna come out.
Shit's gonna happen.
Exactly. It would be foolish to think that something wouldn't come from that. That's how I think of it. Like, you would be naive to think putting in such a stressful situation that something like underlying as anxiety or depression wouldn't manifest into something more serious.
Yeah, totally. So you did how long were you there for?
I was there for about a year, and then after that is when I moved in to start my career in homelessness. So.
Okay, so this is where you hinted at it there, and I thought this is where it was going.
Yeah.
All right, so now you got into a career to aid homeless people like find affordable housing. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of everything. So I worked under a supportive services for Veteran Families Grant, SSVF. So if there's any other fellow SSVF grant people out there, I see you. I shout you out. And so I got started in that because they saw my mental health experience as a way that could fit really nicely into the homeless population because of what we just talked about, how those experiences can, manifest that. So that's how I kind of segued into the homelessness field. And I started off as a case manager. So what I was doing is I was working with veterans on goals. So whether that was employment goals, mental health goals, or like so I saw them after they had moved into housing. I did work with them a little bit before that. However, we're housing first. Housing first means that you are housed regardless of if you're actively using, regardless if you are struggling with mental health, regardless if you have income, it doesn't matter. Housing first is we're going to get you into housing, and then after that, we're going to provide all these wraparound services, because you cannot, again, best self, right? Like you be your best self if you don't have the basic components of like housing. And I always like to reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So when you are at the bottom, the first thing you need is like safety, and you need food, and you need shelter. Those are like basic needs. And in order to work yourself up the pyramid, to reach self-actualization, your true and your best self, you need to meet these other levels. Like you have to work through the basic needs before you can go to the next level, which is, having social relationships, or feeling like a sense of, self-worth, like those types of things.
So housing is the first one. I feel like I'm getting a lesson here now.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned a little bit about this like in high school and college, but yeah, it's all coming back to me now. So all right. So housing and shelter is like the number one. If you don't have that, you're not moving up.
No. And safety and like your food and stuff, right? Like you can't move on from that position or your situation unless you meet those needs. So and this is actually a best practice around the country. This is a housing first. You can find it in all of HUD's, 10-year plan to end homelessness, USICH, all of that good stuff. And so this is a national best practice. It's got a really good success rate. I think it's like 80% now. We have moved away like 15 years ago to make people, in order to get A, which is housing, you have to do B and all those B and C and all those things. We have shifted away from that as, in the homelessness field, like as a community, as a country, like that's no longer, like we don't punish people now. We don't make them work. I mean, I don't want to say that because someone might interpret that wrong. People do work for housing, but it's not that you have to be sober for 30 days and you have to make a certain amount of income and you have to be on your medication. Like that's old news. Like that's the old way of thinking, because it doesn't work. And housing first does. So when I saw those clients, like, yeah, I would do light touch case management with them and connect them to services and do as much as I could. But the housing was like the real part that was, once they got into housing, then I could swoop in and give them all the wraparound services that they needed.
The probability then of the success rate, once you have the housing, the probability of the success rate of them, getting off the drugs or, getting a job, all those things probably, I'm sure there's probably a stat out there, but significantly increase the probability of that actually happening.
Oh, for sure. I mean, think about it. If you're living unsheltered, you usually don't know like what time of day it is, unless you have a phone. And there are tons of people who are experiencing homelessness that have phones. Like that's also a really bad stereotype. Like, why do you have a phone? You're homeless. And it's like, well, you can still have a phone. Like that's, but if you don't, and say you don't really know what time it is, or you don't know what day it is, how are you going to keep up with your appointments? How are you going to keep up with your counseling? Or how are you going to like just go through the like those hierarchies, right? Like how can you do that if you don't even have your basic needs met? So after they got into housing, that's when like the true, again, like wraparound services really started. And that was like connection to employment, connection to counseling, connection to community, like creating social circles, right? All of that good stuff. So I did that for a while. I did that for like almost a year. And then a position opened up on my team where I was the one who was actually talking to the landlord. So now my role got flipped, right? So now I'm on the other end when working on the housing for them, trying to advocate to landlords, talk to them about like, why should they partner with our program? And that was, I had never done anything like that before. I had never I didn't know anything about real estate. I knew minimum stuff about like fair housing, but not really too much, right? So I was like, can I do this? Like, I don't know. And then I just ended up being really good at it.
So like, why did you decide to do that? Like, what was...
Just to like do something new and like push myself, right? Like I'd never done it before. Could I be good at it? Maybe. I didn't know. And maybe like this is something, again, a niche for me that like I could succeed in. And I was getting a little burned out from the case management. Working with vulnerable populations does cause like a lot of high burnout, nonprofit work in general, right? Like can cause some high burnout. So I was kind of feeling it. And this actually circling back a little bit, I was applying for grad school again.
Okay.
So, yes. So I was like, I want to go to grad school. I want to be at like a, I do want to really like focus one-on-one with people. So I was still in the mindset of counseling when I was still working as a case manager for veterans. So I was still in that mindset. So I was kind of like I was trying to figure out like, what do I want to do? Like, I mean, do I want to case manage? Do I want to go to grad school? Like, I don't know. I kind of need a break a little bit. Like I need to like figure something out. I need to explore like a new skill set and see if I have it. And I did. I mean, I was really good at it. So on average, HUD sets a benchmark of 90 days. Like, we want to see someone get into housing within 90 days, so 3 months. We had our data showed that we could get someone into housing within 60 days. And by the time I left, I could get someone into housing within 35 days. So, and that's about building connections in the community. Like, at one point, I had landlords calling me and they were like, who do you have? Your program is so great. We love it. Like, everything's so seamless. We work with you guys. Like, you're great. Like, who do you have? And I would just run through my list and I'd be like, here, I have this person. Like, you want to make this work? Yes, absolutely. And that's about building relationships. Every landlord that I worked with got a thank you card. Whether I had housed someone with them first time or the 5th time, they always got a thank you card. It's about like building those connections. And Austin is a huge city. I mean, it's ginormous. I mean, I think the population now is up to 2 million. Like,
that much.
It's huge. So, and there is a lot of housing there. However, Austin is usually at like a 98% occupancy limit. So there is housing, but it's filled, and it's also very expensive. It's even more expensive now today than what it was when I was there, I guess 4 years ago. So that was a challenge. I mean, we had clients who had no income. How are you going to house someone without 3 times the rent? You know, you got to get creative. You got to use the program as backing, and you got to sell the client. You really have to, some clients have criminal history, and you have to write letters about, how have they, moved past that, or like what was going on in their situation. I mean, you really do have to get creative, and it's not typical sales. It's very unique. You're selling a person, right? Like, how's this person, like, do a good deed, right? They're a veteran. Like, you use all of these like sort of tips and tricks to like get somebody into housing. And it is the best feeling seeing somebody get into housing. Like, I love that. Like, I was just like, let's sign your lease, let's move in. Like, I love that. And it was so great. And I've had clients who after they got into housing, they ended up faring better than me. I worked with a woman who we got into housing, and she ended up working for a judge, and she was making like double my salary. Like, that's amazing. Like, that I could help somebody do that, and there's a lot of like awesome success stories that I could probably share like that's endlessly.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really cool. So how long did you do that for?
So in total, when I did like case management and work there, I think it was probably like maybe like a year and a half or so. Because I did end up getting into grad school.
Oh, this is it. Here we go.
Here we go.
Where at?
I went to grad school at University of North Texas Health and Science Center. I think it's a green machine.
What's that?
I think green. I don't know what their mascot is. I'm a bad alumni. I'm so sorry if someone from there is watching this right now.
They're offended.
Yeah. And surprise, I went to grad school for my master's in public health. I decided to totally ditch the counseling and the therapy route because I saw so many problems at a high level in like the system of homelessness. Like, to me, it almost, and it does still feel like this today. I feel like a lot of communities struggle with this, is that there's always going to be somebody. Oh my gosh, I keep hitting this and I'm so sorry. You told me not to, and I've hit it like, it's my chin. It's my chin. Gosh. I have a big chin.
She's got a big chin, everybody.
So I'm going to link back up just a little bit. So I feel like there's always going to be somebody, like there's always going to be somebody to house. You're almost just like putting a little Band-Aid on it and you just move on to the next person. And that is so wonderful on an individual level to get somebody into housing. Like I said, I felt so much joy doing that and like literally changing somebody's life. But there needs to be bigger like systemic changes. And I just thought, like, I could be the person to do that. And actually my boss, Maegan Podolsky, best boss I ever had, shout out, and she had her MPH, and I saw it in her signature line one day, and I was like, what is an MPH? I need to Google that. And I did, and it said Master's of Public Health, you can focus on like there's different like fields, you know, that you can focus on. So there's like a policy one, which is what I went into. There's like maternity health, environmental, biostatistics, like all that good stuff. And so I started reading through the different disciplines, and I was like, no, policy is like my thing. Like I want to do that. So I applied to the University of North Texas, and I got in. And so I worked that job at the veterans job. I did that, and I was in grad school simultaneously for like maybe like 6 or so months, and it was so hard. I was working, you know, like 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and I was also a full-time grad student, and it was a lot. And I had to decide, like, I need to sacrifice like something, and it's not going to be my master's. So I said, you know what? I need to finish this so I can come back to this work and like really make a difference. So for now, I need to like let this go and revisit it. And so that's what I did. I took a break and I did a lot of different jobs. I was an Uber driver. I worked for the VA processing medical claims overnight again. I don't know what's up with me. Yeah, I don't know. It's actually kind of nice sometimes. And
except when you see ghosts. But
yeah. Yeah, or you're planning your escape from ghosts.
Yeah.
And then I was an admin assistant too. I worked for like a headquarters at like a plasma industry. So I just bounced around and to finish up my degree, you know, as quickly as I could. And that was when so I was at the plasma company, and that was a great fit for me. Like I had a really good boss who also just like let me work on like grad school stuff. You know, it was like very low key. It was consistent pay. It wasn't hard work. I made some really good friends. My two besties, Alana and Govin, we had some really good times there. So that was good. I did that for up until I moved. So I moved in July of 2018, which is also when I graduated with my master's. So I thought this is a good time. I don't want to live in Austin forever. It's too expensive. I'm too far away from family. It's just too much. So I want to leave. My lease was ending, and I'm like, where do I want to go next? I really liked the Raleigh-Durham area, and I still really do love that area. But the universe said, bitch, you thought we're going to put you in Wilmington, North Carolina. And that's where I ended up.
Landed in Wilmington. And what was the plan?
For a good minute, there was no plan. I was unemployed for a couple of months, which was pretty stressful. And I know, like, even in my own family, like, I've had family members who were unemployed, and I don't know. I needed a job. Like, it was stressing me out too much. I'm like pretty type A. I like to be in control of things. And I was like, I need a job. Like, I can't do this. But I also I had my master's. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want another situation where I was like, let me go work at an accounting firm. I wanted to utilize my degree I worked so hard for. I really wanted to make change, like that I knew that I could. And so I didn't want to just like take anything. I wanted to really like make sure I was being intentional about the next phase of my like career. And so I got a job. I became the homeless Continuum of Care director for 3 counties in Wilmington, so like New Hanover, Pender, and Brunswick. I worked for a local government agency, and I worked with the cities and the counties to basically reduce their homeless numbers, to create a system for the population, actually. So when you think of response systems, right, like there's a natural disaster response system. Like, what do you do when there's a hurricane? What do you do when there's like a tornado or whatever, right? So there is a system in place for when you are experiencing homelessness. It's the homeless response system. It's got a really fancy name that HUD calls coordinated entry, which nobody knows that because there's a lack of education. There's actually over 400 continuum of cares in the United States. So there is one in your state, at least. There's actually 12 in North Carolina. Luzerne County is its own COC. They actually use our software system, which we'll probably get into later. But yeah, you have a local continuum of care in your county, and it's definitely worth looking into and exploring for sure, because they do a lot of amazing things. They bring in money to the community to help literally house folks and like pay for that housing. They're basically cat herders. They bring everybody together to work on a common goal of ending and reducing homelessness or preventing homelessness in that area. They're basically HUD's, like the in-between for the communities. Between community and HUD, they're like in between. Now, HUD didn't like place them there. HUD just said, and HUD, some people don't know the acronym of HUD.
Yeah, well, so I was literally just going to say, I was going to interrupt you. What is HUD?
Housing of Urban Development. So it's our federal entity. So there's the secretary of HUD. Who was it? Who is it now? I should know that, and I don't. I'm so sorry. But anyway, so there is. And now that I'm a little bit more far removed from the homelessness field, I feel like I've sort of like lost touch with all the like nuances of it. Because now that I'm really far removed on the software side. So I'm working with a bunch of communities like that I don't really get to know their communities so intimately the way that I was running my community. So basically, yeah, HUD says you need to do all of these things. You need to make sure you have a homeless response system that meets these core elements. You also need to make sure you have a board. You also need to make sure you have committees. You also need to do all of these things, right? But here's the flip side. HUD says you need to do all these things, but they don't tell you how to do it, and they don't give you the money to do it. So you and your community are left to figure out, how can we make this work for our community? The Wilmington community looks much different than the wilkes-barre community, right? Like we all struggle with the same problem of affordable housing and homelessness, but this population could be a younger population where, and I don't know those statistics, but in Wilmington, it's older, or it's families, or it's persons of color. So you have to design a system that works for your community. It's not cookie cutter. So those are the challenges where you're like cat herding people together to figure out, how do we do this, and how do we apply for these federal funds, the limited funds that they do give you, and how can we get our local partners like our counties and our cities to put funds into this problem. So you're kind of walking like a fine line really between, being liked and also being disliked because you're putting in things into place that maybe providers or the community doesn't agree with. And that's something that I struggled with in my community. Is I flipped the whole system upside down because I saw that it was not working for our homeless population. People were cherry picking, which is like they're picking the people that they want to serve, the people who don't have mental health, the people who are taking medication, the people who have income. And those are actually not the folks that are prioritized for housing, right? We're trying to do the complete opposite, because those people who don't have income and need connection to mental health and who are chronically homeless, those folks are actually the folks that really need these supportive services and this funding. So I flipped it around and I said, no, we need to completely redo this system, which, again, some providers had been working in that system for 10 years and they're like, well, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, you don't really have a choice. So, right. So you're kind of balancing like, well, I need to bring all these people together, but I'm also implementing things that they might not like, but I'm doing it for the population because I'm an advocate through and through. Like advocacy is in my blood. So I'm advocating for the population. And actually something I saw that really like sparked this mentality is someone I read somewhere, I don't remember, probably in one of the COC support groups, was like, if you were experiencing homelessness, could you navigate your own system? And I was like, no. You can't. It's you go from this agency to this agency to this agency and they bounce you around. Who has time to bounce around on a bus all day? If you can even get a bus ticket, that's assuming someone has the funds to get a bus ticket. So you're like bouncing around from here to there, and then you end up essentially nowhere. So you don't get any of the information. You don't get any of the direct help you need. So what I did, based on my experiences in Austin, so I was at more of a case manager level there, but I worked with the position I held in Wilmington. I'm trying to like make the connection for listeners. So like when I was working in Austin, I would report to my COC and I would say, this is how many people I've housed. This is who I house. And we would basically go through the list together. And they needed to meet metrics. Every COC needs to meet metrics. So now I'm on the other side of things where case managers are talking to me and they are telling me about like who they're housing and like if the system is working and so on. So that's the connection there. And I think my experience in Austin is what got me my job in Wilmington, because they are like very connected. Housing first, right? Continuum of care, housing folks. I mean, there was an SSVF program in Wilmington too. So all of this is like really coming like full circle. And I'm like, okay, I get to actually like implement programs and like really help this community like move forward and get people like into housing, but from a higher, level.
Do you feel like you made a difference? Like, yeah, I know you said like you really wanted to get yourself into a role, get yourself into a position that you feel like you can really truly make a difference.
Yeah, I really do. I did a lot of good work there. So when I entered into the department, it was just me, one person. Now there's 5 people there, or maybe 4. So I expanded that department because I created programs. When I redid our coordinated entry system, our homeless response system, again, taking my experience from Austin, and what worked really well there was that you funnel people through dedicated spots so they can get assessed, so they can get on what we call a by name list. Now that by name list gets staffed. So when I was in Austin, I was staffing that by name list with my continuum of care partners. And again, working on the referrals, like what program is going to get this referral, where's this person at in their housing, right? So we're doing all that in Austin. So now I'm like, wait, this really worked in Austin. So I'm going to apply a smaller model to Wilmington, because we don't have thousands of homeless folks. We only have couples of hundreds. We're not at the scale of what Austin, is or was. So, and it worked. So why reinvent the wheel? And that's actually a lot of what homeless continuum of care work is seeing what other communities are doing and applying it to fit your community. Again, there are so many good ideas out there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Someone's already figured it out. So apply. I mean, there's a whole Facebook group for I keep hitting
that
this.
Chin.
I'm sorry.
Your
oh
chin.
my god.
The viewers are gonna be so mad at your chin.
And we talked about this like a lot before we started, and I was like, I'm not gonna hit it. I'm fine.
I'm like, watch your chin. Yeah.
I think it's because like maybe my nose is too big and I can't see it. No, it's not that big. So I basically I did dedicated sites where people could go and get real answers. And on top of that, it was transparent. We're not going to sugarcoat things. We're not going to tell you that you're going to get 100% going to get into housing. We're not going to tell you, we're 100% going to like do all of these things for you, because that's where the distrust comes from. When you promise things to people and you don't follow through with it, they're like, well, I was let down by the system. That didn't come through for me. Like, and I saw that so many times in like my work with Austin and in my work with Wilmington. Like, I saw that happen more often than not. And it's like, we don't do that. We need to talk to our homeless population, because they're real people. Like, we need to be honest and we need to be transparent. And that's the best system, an honest and transparent system. And it worked. People, when I first rolled out this program, a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to get yelled at. People are going to scream at you. People are going to be pissed off. No, I can count on one hand how many times I had a negative interaction with someone, because people value honesty. They call me, I'm on this list. When am I going to get housing? I'm like, I can't tell you that, because we don't go off first come, first serve. We go off a prioritization process. So just because you did the assessment last week, you could be waiting 6 months to a year, because we want to encourage you to seek options outside of this list, because this list is really to prioritize the most vulnerable with the highest needs. So, and that's every community has a coordinated entry system. It's required by HUD. You have to have one. Now, you can do it many different ways, what works best for your community. So that's nice. We didn't have to follow like a cookie cutter like program. So, I really feel like we did a lot of good. As community partners, we were meeting weekly, we were staffing lists. Everything was very fair. We were really truly prioritizing those with who were most vulnerable with the highest needs. We had great relationships. I formed the first Continuum of Care board over there. We'd never had that before. I did a lot of technology stuff there. Every community, every Continuum of Care has to conduct what's called a point in time count. And a housing inventory count, which is basically there's one night in January, 24-hour period where you literally go out and count homeless folks. And you take bed utilizations so that's the housing inventory count, is you take bed utilization. So if I am a permanent supportive housing program, I have 15 openings, and I have 15 people in them, that's 100% utilization. If I'm an emergency shelter, I have 100 beds, only 50 are filled, that's 50%. So we have to as communities have to report all of that information to HUD. They take all the data and they do something with it bigger, right? They put it in the USICH strategy plan or whatever they want to do with it, right? But that's what we're required to do. We have to go out in typically it's in January. There have been some flexibility now because of like COVID and things like that. Like this year, a lot of communities were waived to do it sometime in February because of the pandemic. But so we go out and we literally go out and volunteer, groups and go out and we survey folks. So what I did is it was all on paper. So literally people were going out with clipboards and pens and doing the surveys on paper. And I was like, I'm not going to compile all that data like by paper. I'm not doing it. Like that's so inefficient. Yeah. So I actually created like a survey through ArcGIS, survey 123, to develop a survey where people could do it on their phones. So no more need for clipboards or pens, papers, none of that stuff. Just bring out your phone or your iPad. You could do it on your desktop if you're like stationed at an agency somewhere. And it was great. And so I think they're still using it now. I obviously left. I have a new job from that. But yeah, it's all about creating sustainability too, right? Like when you leave a position like this, not everything should just be totally flipped around, right? Like I'm trying to create sustainability for when the next person comes in, that they have something to go off of, and maybe had a little bit more than what I had. I was only just me, and I was like building the plane while flying it. Like oh man, I'm like 25 or something. Like what am I doing? I'm running this like 3-county system. Like nobody's taking me seriously. Like they all just think, oh, you're just some young girl, right? Because we've been doing homelessness for 20 years. And I'm like,
yeah, what does she know?
Yeah. I'm like, well, just because you've been doing it for 20 years doesn't mean you've been doing it right. I always kind of stand by that because homelessness is an ever-changing landscape. 6 months ago, it's not the same as it was. It's always changing, and you have to change with it. So, and like we were talking about earlier, like even the mentality in the face of homelessness, right, has shifted in the last like 15 years. And I also like to refer to natural disasters. Like we had a huge natural disaster in Wilmington, Hurricane Florence, and people who owned their homes were now facing homelessness. So how can you sit there and say that every single homeless person is, a bum or, has a mental health problem or all these things, right? When your literal neighbor who owns their home just lost their home and now they're facing homelessness. So it's always changing, and we have to remember to change with it and progress with it. I always say, like, in order to progress, you must invest, which is investing your time, investing your resources, investing your voice. It's not all about money, but money does help, right? You have to invest the funding to do so, but it's also about investing you and your voice into things, because whenever I would talk about the Continuum of Care, people are like, what is that? I have no idea. What is that? And so I'd give all these presentations about what a homeless Continuum of Care does, right? And at the end of my presentation, I would say, what you learned today, just go to your table, right? Like go and have dinner with your family or your friends or whatever, and just tell them what you learned today. Because now you've just told an extra, 1, 2, 5 people about it. And so now you're helping to like spread the word about, what homeless Continuum of Cares do, which is like really important work.
Yeah. And talked a little bit about the technology and talking about spreading the word. And now this might be a good transition. The company Grassroots, speaking about spreading the word and technology. So we got the shirt here, actually.
Yes.
We got the shirt.
Yes.
Grassroots.
Grassroots.
Shout out to Lauren Gorney.
Hey, she already got a shout out. No, just kidding.
Oh shit!
Love you.
We'll cut that second one out. So now where does we also got an Ep Pierogi cup here
I know,
too.
and our Schlothy boy for Hufflepuff.
Sloppy boy, yes. So where does grassroots come in, into your life?
Yeah, that is such a good question. So before I get into that, I want to backtrack just like a minute and talk about where I'm at now with the software company I work for.
I skipped ahead a little bit there.
No, you're good, because I implemented a lot of technology solutions. So I was a system administrator. So every continuum of care also has to have a database system. It operates very much like an electronic health record. You can do program enrollments. I mean, it's a case management software tool. So you can track enrollments, you enroll people into programs, you get their whole homeless history, how many times have you been homeless, what does it add up to, do you have a disability, do you have income, right? It's a whole assessment. So I also did that in Wilmington too. So I was the one who's providing data and running analytics and sharing that with the community, making sure our programs were operating well and all that good stuff, right? And also I used that system to submit federal reports, because HUD says we don't really care what system you use, but you have to submit these federal reports, one of them being the point in time and the housing inventory count. So I was a homeless continuum of care director for 3 years. So I did that, and I actually now work for a software company who has that type of case management tool. So now I work with communities all across the United States. I mean, I've worked with communities in California, Washington. They could be as big as LA. They could also be as small as right here in Luzerne County.
Right,
they use our software. Yeah. So we work with the communities to make sure that they're utilizing the system, the software, in the best way that meets the needs of their community. So do they want a custom assessment? Okay, we'll put that together for them. Do they want to reconfigure their coordinated entry system? Okay, we'll help them with that too. So we're using our software to make sure that they're getting the most out of it. And I think a lot of my work in technology advancements in my community led me to that position. So in all of my positions in homelessness, I feel like it's always just taking the next step, right? Because I was a homeless continuum of care director, and a lot of people I work with also held those roles too, because they know how the systems work. They worked in a software system, whether it was the company I work for now, or maybe it was the system I worked in previously. So we all have a lot of relatable experience. And so that's kind of how that all ties in together about where I'm at now. And so now with grassroots, right, we get to the big reveal.
The big reveal.
I know, right? All that backstory for nothing. No, just
a lot of chin bumps into the microphone.
I'm being better about it now.
All right.
Yeah, so grassroots development was actually started by my cousin, Lauren Gorney, also with Ep Pierogi, and also who got this sloth boy for my cat Hufflepuff. So she's given me everything on this table, actually.
Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, and so she started grassroots. Oh, man, I hope she doesn't listen to this, but I think it might be 2013. I do apologize if that's not the right year, but
let's just say several years ago.
Yeah, several years ago. That's yes. And that was her side hustle when she was doing her 8 to 5 job too. So she was building grassroots and working in her 8 to 5, which is what I'm doing now, where I'm working my 8 to 5, and then I'm also doing grassroots on the side to help grow it, because eventually it would be great to be my own boss and just do what I am really passionate about. I'm very passionate about homelessness and affordable housing, but I also love creating content too. I love creating graphics. I love being an advocate, and we work with nonprofits, Dave Pedri, Luzerne Foundation, Catherine Polidal, Women with Children. We work with those nonprofits to make sure that their voice is being heard in the community and raising awareness. And I love that. I thrive off that. And those are also missions and visions that I truly believe in. I love working with the Women with Children program, because housing is everything, right? And so they're reducing barriers to poverty by they're doing that housing piece while those families work on getting a bachelor's degree. So that's something that I truly believe in. And with the Luzerne Foundation, they do give so much into the community. And when when grassroots took on that account, I'm people don't know enough about what you're doing. So obviously seeing Dave on here and talking about all this good stuff, I'm yes, awareness.
Shout out to Dave.
Yes, shout out to Dave and Catherine.
And Catherine, that's right.
And I just love that. Like, I love raising awareness. Like I said, advocacy is in my blood. So whether I'm doing it for the homeless population or I'm doing it for a nonprofit, like, I love that. And I really, really thrive in that environment. I'm also like very creative. So the fact that I can like pair my creativity and also still be in the nonprofit world, I feel like is literally like the best of both worlds for me. So I love that. And it's great. I mean, it's like, it's thriving. We have a lot of accounts and it's very busy. And
so what do you do? So you create content, what, for social media, websites? Is it a mix of the two or and then some? But you know, you probably do a lot of content creation for social.
Yes. Yeah. We are primarily in the social media realm. So your Facebook, your Instagram, your Google My Business. And I mean, some folks like to do a LinkedIn if that's, you know, their cup of tea, but primarily we're like in the Facebook, Instagram, Google My Business realm. And so we do everything from start to finish. So we do all original content creation. And we do that because it's your brand and it's your voice. So we make sure that all the content we're creating matches with that, because we're not trying to like overhaul your brand, or I mean, if that's what you want, we'll do that too. We'll do everything. But like most times people want, you know, just to raise awareness or like if drive engagement to websites or like just again increase enrollments. Like I know with the Women with Children, they've gotten actually some applications from people seeing the social media. So it really depends on what the organization, you know, wants, and we do all that with them. We basically do a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and we go through that with them. We say, this is everything you're doing great, this is everything that we could make better, and this is how we'll basically literally grow you into like your next phase of success. So it is thriving and it's busy and it's good and I love it. So what if they need a graphic made, we'll do a graphic. If you have photos, we'll do photos. We'll take that, the actual content. So when I talk about content, I'm referencing like a graphic or a photo, or like an article, like linking it to something like the Times Leader or whatever the local newspaper is. So that's your content. So we do that. And then we also create your captioning too. So we'll do your hashtags, we'll do your strategy, we'll do all of that.
People hate creating captions.
I love it.
I feel like that's like one of the things, like whenever I talk to like any other like friends or anyone like that say manages any social media accounts, that's always like, what, this is the question. What do I say? It's like everyone like talks about.
Yes.
Like, well, what do I say? I have this photo, but like, what do I say?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And that's where we come in, because we know what to say, and we will take that article, we'll condense it down, and we'll make that captioning in your voice, in your brand's voice, your persona, and like what you want on social media. So we do that. We post it. We'll schedule it out. We have our own data and analytics that we basically work for the first like couple months with an account to figure out what's the best time to like post. Now, every account is a little bit different, but I will drop a little tidbit for anybody who's listening for this area.
Is this like free tip here?
This is a free tip, Tuesday tip. We do have Tuesday tips on Grassroots. We post every other Tuesday. But for this little tip, it's Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? No, it's Monday.
Yeah, it's technically Monday.
Okay,
but Wednesday when people are listening.
Yeah, okay.
Watching,
Wednesday tip.
Yeah, Wednesday tip.
That in this area, morning time is really great. So like that 7:30 in the morning slot, 7:45, those are really good times because people are like waking up, they're checking social media.
We sleep in here, I guess. Huh? Like,
no, this is good for this area.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they're waking up, they're going to work, they're having their coffee, they're looking at social media, doing all that. And then also lunchtime is like a really good time for this area too. So like between 12 and 1. So people are like breaking for lunch and they're checking social media and stuff. So we do that for our accounts to make sure we're utilizing engagement. I mean, data is a very powerful tool and I love data. I mean, I work for a software company, so I love getting to use that to like literally advance that organization or nonprofit's goals. There's a wealth of information there. So we actually do not rely on Facebook analytics, because Facebook analytics tells you for every single account 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and 10 p.m. is the best time. That's not true. Don't listen.
So don't listen to Facebook.
I'm like, not all of these accounts can have the best time at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And we've tested it. So we have
Okay, so there's backed science behind this theory here. Okay.
Yes. Which is why we do our own. We create our own chart and we test it. And sometimes social media is, I mean, not every single post is going to do well. That's unrealistic to think that. But if you strategize in the right way, if you get the right captioning, if you post in the right times, then your post has the best opportunity to, get that high engagement and do like well and successful. So sometimes it's a strategy. I mean, you really do have to like think about it. And again, we use our charts, we use our own analytics to like test that. And at some point, and I'll use Niparogi as an example, at some point, you're not going to need that. Like anything we post usually does really well because for the last year and a half, we have been testing the algorithm and we've been working to that point. And by using the data and using the algorithm, we've increased our followers, increased our likes. So now when we post things, our engagement is usually pretty high. It doesn't matter now about the time of day that we post. So that's the end goal for any account we work with is no, we don't want to be always looking at this chart of like, what's the best time to post. We want to get you to the point that when we post, it's great and it's successful, but that takes a little bit of time to build up, because I mean, we've had posts where we post them Sunday at 6:35, does amazing. Sunday 6:34, not so great.
Matter of minutes.
Yes, exactly. So you kind of you have to test a bunch of the days and a bunch of different times and see what works literally the best for your account. Some accounts don't share that, right? Like some of our accounts do better in the evening. We manage a band account. They do better in the evening times because they're a band, and that makes sense, right? Their Friday nights, their Saturdays are usually better than compared to something like the Luzerne Foundation where the morning time is the best. So we're in the weeds with our accounts figuring out what works best for them because we also realize that not everything is a cookie cutter program and everybody's unique. So we like to take that approach and we're grassroots, hands-on. We like local. We like getting involved with local nonprofits and missions and visions that we value too. So I love it. I keep saying that, but I do love it.
How much do you love it?
I love it. It's just great because I'm a creative person. So I love getting to express creativity that way through social media and even my own social media too. I find ways to get creative and grow my own following and just, I don't know. It's fun for me. It's like a hobby, but it
is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
It is. It totally is. And my whole show, this whole thing started because of social media. If it wasn't for social media, and there's a freaking hashtag in my name and logo of the show, so clearly that shouts social media right in the name.
Exactly.
And it's just, I don't know. I feel like so many people, and I feel like I've said this a million times in the show, but so many people I think just underestimate and undervalue the power of social media.
Yes.
It's just like you said, just the right time of day, right place, the right content. You just have to pay attention to what's going on. I feel like it's really not rocket science, and it's just, I think so many people just downplay social media oh, it's a waste of time.
It's not a waste of time. It's so important because everybody uses the internet. Everybody, if they want to find something out about your business, you better have a Facebook. You better have an Instagram. You better be on Google My Business.
That's the first thing everybody's doing.
Yes, exactly. And also what's great is with Google My Business, you can get analytics from that too. How many people went to your website after that? Or how many people called you after that? What are your keywords coming up? For new pierogi, right? Obviously it's pierogi and rogi, but we've had some funny ones in there too. But it's those kind of things you want to put into your website and pick it up. So it's all connected. It really is. And what we were talking about earlier too is kind of making social media what you want it to be. Just because you have something happening that day does not mean you need to post it that day. You can make social media what you want it to be, which is also the other part of what I love about social media is you can manipulate it to what you want it to be. Just because, as I mentioned, like if there is an article that comes out that day, you can save it. You can hold it on for like a day or two and then release it, you know, and like send it back into the algorithm to get picked up, right? You can hold on to photos from 6 months ago and release them, not to give away all of our secrets, but
you're giving away the secret sauce here, but that's good. Yeah.
But I will say, yeah, so like sometimes
repurposing and reusing content.
Exactly. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Environmentally friendly.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
I love that though.
Yeah.
Because you never know when you're going to need a photo of a pierogi.
Right. Yeah. Or like Pufflepuff toy here.
Or Schlotty boy.
Yeah. You know?
No, it's so true though. Yeah, it's true. And
Yeah.
I love that. So I think that's, again, one of the best things is you can make it what you want it to be. And you can grow it how you want. And we've seen so much success with our accounts, so we know what we're doing is working.
Yeah. So, all right. So you got to give me like one or two more like, free tips besides hire you and hire grassroots.
Hire
like,
grassroots.
Yeah.
That's my tip. No.
Like, I mean, just maybe somebody that's, I'll say like, you know, struggling just to like, sometimes I think the biggest struggle is just posting something.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like besides coming up with the caption, whatever, like we can get past that. Like just put a freaking emoji if you don't know what to put. Like just post the damn photo, people.
Yes.
You know?
And we have heard that actually from some of our accounts is they're like, I just don't know what makes good content. I don't know what I should be posting. I don't know, you know, if this is going to do well. And it's like, don't focus so much on if it's going to do well. Posting frequently is not always the answer either. You want to post with intention. You don't want to just post all this stuff because you feel like you need to. You know, you can also test the algorithm yourself too. Like if you want to post in the morning, right? Like maybe a 7:30 slot is good for your business or your area, or a lunch spot, or maybe an evening spot. Test it, see what happens. If it doesn't do well, pick a different slot, you know, and kind of look at what you're posting too, you know, like, are you posting a graphic? Sometimes those don't always do as well because people really love personal stuff. We have found in most of our accounts that when we post like photos of like the women in the Women with Children program, or if we post Dave, right? Like people love that. They love seeing like real people. They love thinking that the business is like a real person.
Yeah, there's real people behind this operation,
exactly.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. And that's how we treat it too. Like your nonprofit or your business is its own entity, and people need to see it that way because they will be more engaged in that way. Like they feel like they're talking to a real person. They're not talking to Dave Pedri or Catherine or Lauren, although some people do think that they're talking to Lauren. So, but they're talking to the business. So yeah. I love all the I love yous. Keep them coming.
Yeah. Hey, Lauren, I love your pierogi.
Yeah, thank you. I take all the love. I tell them I love them back.
On Lauren's behalf.
Yes. Yeah. So that's like a really those are really good things to like think about too. Like, what are you actually posting? Again, graphic versus like a more personal touch, like photo. So those are things to look at. And then even within your caption, a call to action. Always put a call to action in your post. Visit our website for more information. Get the word out about this to your community. Share this post with somebody. Although I do advocate really against like share, like, and comment, because then the algorithm can think like you're spam, but reword it, right? Like don't say share this post, but reword it to get this post out to your community so they know about this program or whatever. So always put a call to action in there. You want people to engage. You want people to comment. You want people to like. And then when that happens, when people start commenting, respond to every single comment. Every single comment.
Yes. I'm glad you said that.
Yes.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yes. You're one, you know.
I am. Yeah, I know. And like,
yeah.
I mean, it's just what boggles my mind is like when anyone, even if it's like something personal, like even if it's like a personal thing, and it's like somebody took the time, like you posted a photo, right? And somebody took the time out of their day to leave you a nice comment to say, hey, like you look nice, or hey, that's really cool, congratulations. And you can't even respond to that person. That's like my biggest pet peeve. And now I know I'm going on record, and maybe I've missed a few here and there. We all have. But however, like I I really think it's so important, and so many people, they don't get that.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to grow your following, respond to the 2 freaking people that commented on your photo. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like I'm on a rant here. But like, I'm like,
all right, reel him back in. Reel him back in.
all right,
He's
cool.
getting hot.
Yeah.
He's getting hot.
We need to cool down here. No, but like, that's I think my biggest pet peeve on social media is especially for businesses. Like, that to me is poor customer service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Poor customer service.
And people love when you respond.
Oh, people think you're like people think
they're cool.
Listen, by the way, anyone out there, personal or business related, if you respond to a comment, you are like that person's hero for that day.
You are.
It makes you feel so good, doesn't it?
I love when companies respond to me. I'm like, oh my God, I feel famous.
Yeah, right. Because then you know what happens after that? After you respond or they respond, you're gonna go back and you're gonna leave another comment. Because you know that they're going to respond.
Exactly.
So it's good for them, and it's good for you. Like, wow, like they acknowledged me. It's just an acknowledgement. Like, that's, and like, people just don't get that.
Yeah. Look at you dropping the hints, the tips,
and rant.
Yeah. Look
All
at
right,
you.
and rant.
All right, you might be onto something here.
Yeah. Respond to comments, people.
No,
That's
yeah,
it.
you really should. And what you want to do is you want to trick the algorithm into thinking that this is something really important.
Yeah,
now,
like
of
it's
course,
viral. Yeah,
exactly. Like, of course, it's really important. Yes, your sale or your article that came out. Yes, it is really important. It's important to us. It's important to you. But the internet doesn't think it's important. So you have to basically trick it and then like comment, engage, likes, all of those
pump
things.
It up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were so I'm on the 570 day committee here, which by the time this releases, 570 day will be over.
Yeah.
But it is a great social media campaign that 570. So it's on May 7th. And actually it's coming up in a couple of days. And it's a way to appreciate the 570 area by posting like what you love about it. And so I joined the committee this year and I was dropping all the hints and I was like, we got to engage. We need like our social media warrior group where we can say, go and flood this with likes and comments and shares, like do what you can. I mean, if you don't want to do all 3, that's fine, but do one. So, and they were like, this is amazing. We love this. Like, and I loved being a part of that committee too. I mean, it's still happening, but it's coming to an end soon because as someone who's a transient from the area, like I wasn't born and raised here, right? I see so many like great things about the area. I mean, the mountains, hello. Like I love that. I love that when you're driving, you can just like literally see the mountains like whenever. I love that. And I feel like there's a lot of negativity that can be in this area because it's gone through, some challenges.
Some rough times.
Yeah, some rough times. But I will tell you that every single community in the United States is struggling with some of the same issues that are struggling here. Homelessness, affordable housing, that's everywhere. Every single place struggles with that. So this community is not alone. And the challenges with whatever crime and job opportunities and growing, like those are very common problems for like smaller areas.
Yeah, it's not just NEPA people.
It's not. And so 570 Day is just a way to like appreciate the area and say what you love about it. And I love being on that committee. I mean, obviously I get to create great content for it and meet people and be involved with, there's a lot of folks on there. We have the Greater Wyoming Chamber of Commerce, the free, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Osterhaus Library. Probably butcher that.
I think so. I think it's Osterhout.
Osterhout. Okay.
It sounds awkward, but
I'm
pretty sure that's
I should have said people's names.
Yeah.
Ahmad, Ali, Amber Loomis,
there we go.
Christine Melifewski. I'm sorry, Christine. I butchered that too.
Molosky, yeah.
Yeah. But I love you all, and it's been so great.
She loves you. Yeah.
But yeah, I've gotten to like meet, like just connect with like really great people and like see how much they love about the area too. And I just love flipping the script. Obviously, I love uprooting everything.
Flip the script person.
I am.
I've learned that tonight.
I just love shaking it up and creating a little chaos. But this time it's actually like good chaos, right? Like, yeah. So it's good.
Yeah. Well, good.
It's been fun.
That's cool. This is exciting. I'm glad we were able to connect on all these levels in terms of all the stuff that you're passionate about and your roots here in NEPA and maybe coming back someday. And appreciate you coming on today. So how can our listeners connect with you online?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Maegan Zielinski. I don't know if I should spell it.
Yeah, we should.
Probably-
M-A-E.
Yes,
Maegan.
it's Maegan. Zielinski, Z like in zebra, Ielinski. You can also find me on Instagram, which my Instagram handle is Z like in zebra. Very like appropriately named
Like
to spell my
that's
last name.
that's actually your Instagram.
It is.
Yeah.
It's Z like in zebra.
Yeah.
Got that from my dad actually. Every time he would spell his last name to people on the phone, he said Z like in zebra, Ielin like Nancy, Ski.
So that became your Instagram username.
Exactly. It's
Naturally.
on brand.
Yeah.
Branding.
It is. Hashtag branding. Yeah.
Yes. But LinkedIn is probably the best way. I mean, you can also find us Grassroots Development we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook, just very direct grassroots development. So if you want to connect on literally anything, homelessness, affordable housing, social media, pierogi, cats. I love cats.
Get your pierogi.
Yes.
And Megan loves cats.
Yes, I do. So I look forward to anybody who wants to reach out and connect.
Awesome. Well, this is great. I'm glad you made it in. You're about to head out of town, so I appreciate you taking the time to come in today. And this has been fun.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing like some more content on the pierogi and grassroots and whatever else you guys are up to. I'm sure there's probably some other cool stuff that you guys are working on. So
yeah,
this has been fun.
We have a lot of cool stuff up our sleeves.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds. Maegan Zielinski on the Stacks podcast in the Blue Door Studio. Thanks for joining me.